This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Menace.
Welcome back to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Menace Sr. Stronger Than My Father podcast is your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood. Hey, I can't do this work all alone, so I have to thank my producer, Mr. Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. So if you're in need of a podcast producer, or if you need someone to do some voiceover work for you, I encourage you to reach out to my friend, Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. Got to give a special shout out to my son, Marcus Jr., for helping his dad set all this stuff up that it takes to run a podcast. So my oldest son, I thank him. Let's go to work. Hey, I would like to welcome my guest, someone who I admire for the hard work he's doing in the community to make change in the lives of kids. And I would like to welcome Mr. Demetrius Short to my podcast. So welcome, man.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you. I'm excited for this opportunity.
All right. You know what I do, man? I deal with fatherhood, bringing awareness to something I feel like is the biggest pandemic no one talks about much. Mm-hmm. And I want to learn your story. My guests will learn more of your story. So first question, tell my audience a little bit about yourself and who's Demetrius Short?
Well, I'm a blessed young man. I come from Cincinnati, Ohio, two-family household. My father, my mother grew up in the church. I have four brothers and a sister. I'm the middle.
In the middle.
So there's two, and then they wanted me to be a girl. Let's get that girl. I was a boy. They missed, and I always say I was such a good child that my sister and I are Irish twins. Less than 11 months later, they finally got their girl. Yeah. And so family structure, my mom did not have to work. My father, worked at United Parcel Service, so we saw him get up every day, go to work. My mom had the hardest job, raising five crazy boys. That ain't enough. And she's still alive and insane. I thank God, because we were a handful. And that girl. So a family of 8, but grew up Cincinnati, Ohio. Athletics, academics, 3.6 GPA, quarterback, shortstop. Point guard, so involved in 16 clubs a year. I was voted Mr. Mount Healthy, the highest award a student can ever get, being named after the school. Oh, wow. Because it wasn't just about popularity, it was student input, community input. So that honor was bestowed upon me in 1992, and that really shaped the character of the man that I am today, one who was responsible for being able to give back and support others as I matriculated in my young professional career.
Well, that's cool. First thing you mentioned is that your mom never worked, right?
No, didn't have to work.
Okay.
No.
Is that something you think that was old school, or why did your dad didn't want your mom to work?
Well, and again, I don't think it. He provided a platform, and it goes to what I saw growing up, and perfect question when I got engaged to my wife. Me being a product of a mom every day, it was the toughest job. When I say she didn't work, she didn't have a corporate job. She worked so that dad can go third shift, come home. I mean, I think the optics there was, I want my wife to be in my children's life. I don't want to hand and pass that on to anyone else. The Christian values, the culture of the Short household. I don't think, and I've never asked them, but I think just growing up in that mold and seeing my mother there, us praying, getting up doing our chores, coming home having dinner with my father, going outside. We're from the old school. When them lights come on, you better be home.
Yeah.
The neighbor could whoop me. We shared doors are open, no lock, this and that. We grew up on a cul-de-sac, and I think it was just the opportunity. My father positioned my mother doing what a true father should do to give a woman an option. So when I got engaged, I was bold. My wife ain't gonna work. And my mother pulled me to the side. I remember the day she said, I'm 16, 17. Yeah. Because I saw it work for me. All my other friends didn't have that. And she looked me in the eye and she said, Demetrius, the best gift a wife can have is a word called option.
There you go.
She said, let me correct you. You see it work here, but don't be so dominant with it. A woman's best gift is you can work if you want to, and the day you get frustrated at work and you want to cash it in, I got your back. So that's what I adopted, and my wife had the option to work, and I believe that that's what works to give women an opportunity to choose what's best for them. That's what happened to me and my family, and it worked. And I passed that on to my wife and gave her the option to work. And she's from a totally different background. Mother and father both worked, so I couldn't impress upon her what worked for me. So she always knew. The day that boss getting your nerve, you ain't gotta ask me like, honey, I'm coming home. Come on, what time do I pick you up? Let's go. So that's the option, and that put the ownership on me to build that financial structure, that culture, so that the woman can really have the option to be able to choose what she wants to do.
And I mean, it's amazing how, with the balance, you saw from your father, because you just said you wanted to do the same thing your father did because you saw it work in the home. What other tools did your father give you that you're still doing today?
Wow, the discipline. He gave me some good ones and bad ones. I mean, just growing up in the 70s and you know, being a product of community and church, you know, we're from the day really how much we were in church was almost giving more ownership than the relationship with Christ. I mean, you see the Ty Tribbett, you know,
I was going to ask you that later on.
Crazy. You know, I grew up with Ty, Fred Hammond, DeBrat, Keith Staten. You know, I grew up with those guys. Played drums with Ty and at the conventions and everything. So what he was saying and what I go back with my father and my mother, and they apologize. And it's just getting peace and reckoning that while we had these traditions, or we had these men who were told from their mentors, a lot of things that worked, but a lot that didn't. And for me, I saw my father. I never saw my father put his hands on my mom. I saw my father get up and go to work. I saw my father come in and get into a fight with a security guard at my football game. I was hated my dad for being at church all day, and I'm 39-9 in football. Where are you at? I'm looking in the stands. All the kids got their and one time my dad came in. It was about close to almost fourth quarter, and you know they locked the gate sometime, and my dad, you know, almost beat this security guard up. He said, I don't care what the time is, I want to see my son play. And we always knew he was there when he come in. Let's go, son. I'm like, coach, put me back in. Daddy here. I don't care if it's 100 or nothing. Put me in, because dad was there. So I saw discipline. I saw love. My dad would slap me in the back of my head. I get out the car because Dad, get to the mall. I'm gonna get with him. He would let me get to the door, turn around. Don't you ever leave your mom in the car. Go back and get your mom. So he was correcting little things where I was trying to be with him and like him, but he taught us how to love, you know, and how to be a gentleman. Some characteristics that really wasn't built on, but all that is instilled in me on how to really nurture. Little old school things, open doors, and people would always say, "Oh, your son is so, you know, oh, he's so gentleman." You don't think about it then, but now at 50, you're like, wow, those were little nuggets that he dropped in us. So getting up, being a role model, going to work, taking care of, providing, provision, was all instilled in me at an early age.
Let me ask you, I'm going to go back to one thing you mentioned. You said your dad was at church a lot. Do you think that was necessary, or you just think that was just how he was raised in his development? Is that I got to go to church, but do you think, and it's just a question, do you think he neglected some family stuff because church was more important, or you think he was able to balance both?
Well, I think it was, and I look at my dad and I sympathize, you know, as we're all looking at healing. Every family has dysfunction. I don't care if you were pastor down to the drummer or flute player. Every family has that dysfunction. David's dysfunction, right? He's always taught Jesse what he did, and David not being there. Did it cause some dysfunction in David not being asked to the party, so to speak? So we play on that. For me, it's balance. No, he loved us. But wasn't taught there was work-life balance. It was work and provide, and then it empowers you to say, well, at least I'm providing, right? And then that's the thing. And what child can handle that question about, dad is providing, but I just want to see you at my game. I just want you to be there. So he was part of the culture, and he would always say, And my friends would say, man, I want a dad like yours. Now, here I am mad at my dad.
Because he didn't come to your game.
And my friends whose dad was at the game saying, so I was confused. I'm going, and my conclusion to the matter is, my God loved my dad, and my dad fell in love with God. I never knew who he was before he was saved. He hints you didn't want to know that guy. And that in itself makes me rest in that a man with that type of love for his Savior and to run away from whatever that was that he had him in sin and all that, and shadow me from that dude to show me this, and to overcompensate in an area for eternity rather than abuse, neglect, drugs and alcohol. I look back now, and I've never even expressed this. You're pulling this out of me live. That
I got a tendency of doing that, man.
I'm sitting there going, I'd rather have that than and see my dad make it to heaven, see us have the principles that we have. Did it hurt? Yeah, but when you look at it in the proper perspective, and then your friends who were saying, my dad showed up at my 30-year high school reunion. He was around the corner. My friends left me, ran to my dad.
What?
My dad's sitting there like this. I mean, I and he's like, Meech, who is this? Mr. Short, Papa Short. I said, Dad, that's Big Lip Willie. Remember from 7 years? Oh, that's Big Head Fred. And I'm giving him all, and he's sitting there with tears in his eyes, and I'm seeing my 30-year guys like what. Maybe I took for granted some of the things that they weren't even in a home and saw a fragment of what type of impact he had. Shame on me for being that critical of a man who was just trying to do the best he could, and who taught him, right? Yeah. And then who taught them, you know? So I give that grace. But I do feel that the church, and again, Sunday morning, my dad was Sunday school superintendent. He was head deacon. So we opened the doors, closed the doors, and I hated it, man.
I've heard
Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Sunday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And so I believe as Ty was trying to say, the systems that was built to say, if we got them in here, they're going to love God more. Actually, that was the worst thing we could have done. It could have been, you can come here one day. But when you go home, do you love God? Is it the building, or is it the relationship? And that was just the time that we left in, that it was the culture that they were trying to save us. Come out from among them. But I was confused. I'm like, well, then don't let me go to work Monday.
That's a good point. Well,
and they would look at me and go, I said, no, wait a minute now.
You gotta work. You still gotta work.
I was that dude. I had to respect Sunday school when Bishop came to the man. Like commercial Mikey, he'll eat anything. I was Mikey.
Wow.
They passed me notes. Hey, Bishop would come a couple times a year to the youth, and he would sit there and they would pass me notes, and I would say, Bishop, I would ask the difficult questions because I would do it in reverence. Not thinking, but I would say, Bishop, we can't skate. My brother won a homecoming king. I won a homecoming king. They crucified. You can't go to that worldly dance. I'm homecoming king. I'm going. Now, am I going to dance? Now, if you instilled all this in me, you mean to tell me that I can be controlled at work, but can't go to this after school event, and the same spirit that you put in me to be good, I cannot live that out. It confused me and made me a little controversial that we can't skate. But we can go to work. The ball sleeping with this person, that person, the customer in the other queue, but because of that paycheck, we justified. I'm like, hey, if we're going to be about that life, then build the school. The church should have enough money to employ every member. But we didn't do that. So I was like,
I showed my wife the video yesterday, and I told her, I don't like being controlled. That's Marcus. Like, you ain't gonna. I have enough. And people ain't gonna agree with this, and I think our podcast is gonna be controversial. Is more of my father. My father's totally different from yours. My father didn't hardly go to church because he didn't like preachers. He didn't like preachers. He thought all preachers were con artists. That's what he thought, and so. He just now, years later, started going to church a little bit more. And I'll be pretty honest with you, it's because it's my mother. My mom been saved way before I was born, 50 years. And his grandkids. And that's how he is. And my father never hit my mother. Now, under the quote church technical term, they'll say my father's not saved. Under the technical terms of the church, of the Pentecostal church, my father's not saved. But I've seen my father do more than guys who said they were saved.
Right.
And they was a horrible father.
Right.
Horrible father. I've seen that growing up in my own church. Horrible fathers.
Indeed.
That their children are suffering.
Horrible.
And their children suffer the consequences.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Like you're curious, I'm curious. How can a man under the technical term church ain't saved raise 3 boys and 1 girl, and all of us is still in the church doing the things we do? And unfortunately, my older brother's disabled, but my younger brother take good care of his children. My sister, my dad made sure she was set with a great husband. I'm considered the oddball, the controversial one, but in 10 years, 11 years of this, there's no scandal on Marcus. And so my point is that my father taught me stuff away from the church. My mom taught me the spiritual stuff. My father taught me work ethics. He taught me what a man's supposed to do.
Right.
A man don't supposed to put his hand on a woman. Right. I've seen people in the church who say they saved, whoop their wives.
Yep.
So to me, I'm confused even now.
Yeah.
I'm confused. And I told my wife the other day, she got mad at me. You just controversial. I said, so what's the truth then?
Just make it plain, right?
Because if I'm Holy Ghost filled, I shouldn't be putting my hand on a woman.
I think
But my father told me that, not the church. My daddy said, you don't do that. My daddy, and now my mom protected us from a lot of stuff. Like when we went to our family reunions, our Thanksgiving events in my grandmother's house, when they put out the liquor and stuff like that, my mom would take us home. And my father allowed her to do that. She said, I don't want my sons around that. And they told my mama, when your boys get grown, they're going to rebel against you because you're sheltering, you shelter them. And it didn't. I'm not tempted to go drink. I'm not tempted to drink. I'm not tempted to smoke. I'm not going to drink something that tastes nasty.
Right.
And then I see the thing of the consequences. Now I may eat a little too much. I'm a big guy. I ain't as fit as you, but I just never. Yeah. My dad, the thing that taught me, the biggest example my father taught me, and I want to get back to your story. He said, "Never be a follower, always be a leader." He said, "I want you to lead." Important. He said, "If they can't follow you, Mark, you don't need them." So I don't have 5 solid friends in my life right now. And my dad said, your best friends is in your house.
Wow.
So all these examples taught me that. But then when I see the church and I see, systems set up, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. You're going to go to hell if you don't do this. Crap. I'm confused sometimes. And I challenge people and say, okay, are we living in a system or are we being controlled by people?
Right.
So that's how I feel. And I think some people like to discuss it, some people don't. And that's what I think for made Ty more controversial because he said that. Because he grew up in the Pentecostal church, as you said, So my thing to you is that in fatherhood, with your father growing up in the church, do you think that subject should be brought up more in the church on sermons about family structure? Yep. The role of a father, and helping women. I hope I'm not getting controversial. Making great decisions on men that you choose.
All right.
Now, like I said, no podcast up in here that I'm an angel, because I'm not. But when I got married, I tried to make better decisions that it doesn't affect her. And then when I became a father, I said I got to even make better decisions so it don't affect my kids. But just in your opinion, what growing up in church, did you hear fatherhood stories a lot, or do you just think it was just more of you got to get the fire, you got to get the fire? I've heard all that so much. It's like it's like I don't feel like hearing that.
Yeah.
But what does it take to make it out here? I already know what it takes to get to heaven, but what does it take to make it? Because at the Sunday when you leave, you got to live on Monday.
The job say be here at 8.
There you go. And you still got to live.
Right.
Now, I understand you got to be an example. You can be an example in all kind of ways. But just your opinion, because I can talk all day.
No, this is, and I feel I'm qualified.
Okay.
Drummer, to lead pastor, you know, so I never talk from any menu that I haven't made.
Yeah.
So for your listeners, you know, who is this guy and whatever, you know, I look back in Bible, look back in my growing up, look back in church, and the hours I've spent in church to be one of a few to go to college, move away, come back, because it was always Christ is coming, be ready. And I'm 50 and he hasn't come yet. And when you look back at the residue of our lives and what we live out and what you put your focus and time in is what you become. And so we become and have grown good Christians and good moral values, but bad credit. I have a problem with that.
Yep.
And I'm just packing this to,
Pack it,
you know,
man.
I'm packing this to get
Let's
there.
go.
I had a pastor, I was on a podcast and on a Zoom, and you're going to hell because you're sleeping around, and you're going to hell because you're drinking, and going to hell at this. And one lady, she said, well, Pastor, with all due respect, I might not be able to control my legs, but you can't control your fork.
I ain't never heard that.
I said, wow.
What do you mean by that? Control the fork.
So he had what he did was he was 400 pounds.
Oh, he controlled his health.
So what he was saying was that the Bible speaks on health. So this is getting right to health, but it's Health Awareness Month, and then we go back to doing whatever. And so you're asking me the simple question about fatherhood, but I think it spans in every area of our lives.
Okay.
Health, wellness, spirituality, finance, workforce development. I believe that churches ought to, as we're preparing for the coming of Christ, why don't we own banks? Why don't we own schools? Why are our children failing out of school? Why does our college students in our churches speaking in tongues but but can't pass calculus? So are we so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good?
Whoa.
Because again,
that's a good one.
we're waiting for Christ. But while I'm waiting, and my mother-in-law, she said, I couldn't skate, I couldn't do this. So she goes skating with us. I see her, moving, because she says, and she has tears sometimes. She's just like, I didn't have a childhood in some area, some basic jumping, skipping rope, couldn't wear jeans, and all these other controversial things that we can get into. But fatherhood and youth, to me, and again, I pastor, should be intentional, strategic initiatives of the church. Because if we're complaining about Juju who shot Pookie, and we show up, why don't we have any infrastructure? And I remember when Jamal Bryant ran out of that community when he showed up with the cameras, and that gangbagger said, oh no, bro, you can leave. I mean, he cussed him, and he about-faced and went out. And I had to respect that, because I was like, are we opportunistics?
Yep. I was going to go to that.
That when things happen, we react to it, but then when the smoke clears, okay. Now, see you all Sunday for my third point on how to live a life of faith for God. But then Monday, we have people and Christians and believers, blood washed, Holy Ghost filled, that get fired from 3 and 4 jobs a year. So if he says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth.
On earth, yeah.
So while I'm anticipating, and while 90% of my preaching is getting me ready for heaven, I believe that there should be an intent on, while Demetrius is here, how do I make him the best father? So if Christ doesn't come for another 50 years and he's dead and gone, the seed that was implanted in him from the kingdom of God,
that's it.
It flourishes in every area of your life.
Yep.
Not just Sunday morning, not just Wednesday. I call them Red Bull moments. And I told my members sometime, I said, y'all making me a Red Bull. What does a Red Bull does? It simulates that you can stay up all night. You weren't created to operate on 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And it pulls you up. But what does it also do? it pulls you down.
That's true.
So Sunday morning, if our pastors and our ministries are Red Bull moments where pastor's going to give me this great word, but then Monday I call you and say, give me 2 points from yesterday's sermon. We so had church. Give me 2 points. I don't know, but we so have church. That's the problem, that we have not discipled members. We've made them stay on the nipple of Sunday morning and Wednesday night hour of powers.
Yeah.
And wonder why they can't live out in their marriage, in their job, the beauty of holiness that God wants to resonate in your entire life. So fatherhood and youth, these are my two top. I believe if I was pastoring, again, I pastor 7 churches. I tried to, get initiatives for youth. Youth should have budgets. I had churches where I pastored where the youth didn't even have to, we fist fried and everything. But then we wondered why the youth or the lack of fatherlessness was there, because you had no intent to make it good. There was not, we're going to raise 5,000 and we're going to have a Stronger Than My Father in our church. We're going to bring Marcus Manice in. We're going to pay to have this in here because this is important, church.
Yeah.
But you don't hear that unless it's Father's Day.
Yep.
Mother's Day. And then we wonder why we're living and scratching our heads saying, why is the fatherless issue still a disease? It's because, in my opinion, sum it up, it hasn't been intentional to really labor in the area that will produce fruit in our fathers' lives and our men's lives, that will allow them to be the pillars in their family that the world needs and depends on them to be. How many 10-week sessions have you been on fatherhood? You have one and then it disappears. Next year,
yeah, you're going to hear a fatherhood sermon on
I'm dying tomorrow, and you're going to make me wait till next year's fatherhood program to hear Mother Day, right? It should be intentional, and there should be people empowered in the church. Right? He said there's many members. He gave some pastors, some preachers, some teachers, some counselors, some educators, some sports and health and wellness. They're in the church. Yeah. But why aren't those people empowered to have a health and wellness committee?
There you go.
A fatherhood committee, a motherhood committee, a finance committee, and take that pressure off the pastor to be all with that S on his chest, and let him empower the people who God has equipped in those areas to really live out. And fatherhood should be one that's intentional and strategic in every church, in my opinion.
No, I think that's true. I think 2 things is that I'm not saying the pastor should do all the work. I think that you can preach a great sermon, but have resources to help family. When I go to church, I don't see a lot of fathers bringing their children to church, and I just don't. And I'm not getting on here saying that I'm perfect. I was just lucky and blessed to bring my family to church, and honestly, that came through my father. I think my father, and I like Tony Evans. Tony Evans says every man should drive his family to church. But now I see in church a lot of single moms bringing their kids to church, and no shade on my church, is that I see them in the prayer line, we crying, we hollering. What happens after that?
Well, that's
what happens. What do you get? You're sad, you're depressed, you're gonna get prayed for, and we trust God. But what's next?
But are you equipped?
That's what I was going to ask you.
That's the thing. A Sunday morning snot and holler at the altar. And again, I've been there. I prayed. Yeah. I've laid hands. I've had people come to me and say, how did you know? I've laid hands on my own daughter, my own wife at the altar. But if we don't go home and take the tangible, I'm a computer scientist, right? Nothing just happens. Yeah. It's 50,000 lines of my code that I wrote for 40 weeks to let you hit that button and turn it on. Wow. That nobody sees, the labor. Yeah. So it's if we're going to address these things, marriages, and it has to be tangible actions, and it's principles like it blows my mind that we're so dumb, and I don't mean that we're so uneducated on Sunday, but Monday we have pastors and leaders who are making $300,000 at work who would be fired from their jobs if they operated the way they operated in church. No goals, no strategies. So why doesn't our church say, hey, this year we're going to be bold. Our goal is for 50 men. We're claiming God for 50 fathers, and this is how it's going to be. In the month of January, it's going to be each one reach one Sunday. I'm doing doing this off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
But that's how strategic the action has to be for us to see the movement and the progress that we need. If it's not intentional, if it's a kumbaya moment, if it's an annual backpack drive and see you all next year, kids, and kids are hungry, poverty, mold in their shoes, don't have this. I got to wait till next year for you, the church. Oh, Thanksgiving, right? I'm eating good on Thanksgiving. You know how many people don't have a meal the day after? We gave away 500 turkeys.
Yeah.
We've done our job. And the homeless guy said, I don't need it today.
I need it.
There's churches on every corner. What about next week when I'm looking at the trash can? So, I think the strategy and the purpose, and it's going to take bold pastors to really stand up and say, outside of everything that we do, heaven is always our goal. But thy kingdom come now on earth while we're here. If fatherhood is important, then let's have the action plans, the steps. When we leave the altar, where does that woman go? Yeah. That you just prayed for, who just didn't God tell you to put them up in a hotel, do this, do that, get to know them better. And so many go out and get in their cars and go back to abuse, go home with nothing but a speaking in tongue moment. But no tangible reality to how to live and make their lives better.
Man, you the first person to say that. I've been wanting to say it for a long time. Well, is that I understand, and I've heard statistics say that most people can't remember a sermon past Wednesday.
No. I sermon prep 30 hours. Yeah. And on Monday, if I ask what were my 3 points or whatever, it's and that's what I call the Red Book moment. It's Sunday gets me through Monday and Tuesday. Yeah. Wednesday, my hour of power gets me through Thursday and Friday. Then I can live whatever I want because I know the church is going to give me my moment. Yeah. When are we going to lead from moments to movements to where we really empower people to take that word? And I'm nowhere near the best preacher. Put me at the lowest of the totem pole. But when we talk about David at Ziklag and break that story down, and it touches people, that should, especially disciples of Christ, to say that the babies in Christ, get them off. But when you have 30-year members under your leadership who can't quote the books of the Bible, and wonder why their life is where they are, Pastor, I want you to get me there. But when do you take ownership of your own soul salvation and take that word and say, God, this was a great word. Get home, have dinner with your family, ask your children, what did you get out of today? Yeah. And how are you going to apply it tomorrow when you go to school and you may face whatever you may face? Yeah. That creates intentional conversation that makes living the word and becoming the word and the love and hands and feet of Christ more relevant, because you can preach at your business, place of business. I don't know your people, but for you to come back and they live out that, they don't know Pastor D, but you can be inspired through a word, and on Monday share that with somebody, and you just preach just as powerful a message that I had, with no lights, no camera, no take me to E flat, no I'm getting ready to close, changing keys and all that stuff. And you just lay hands on a friend and say, I love you, and I know you had a bad day yesterday, but I believe in you. And tears come down. You preached a powerful sermon of hope that better than anything on Sunday morning can ever do, because you are the hands and feet of Christ. And he says, by this shall all men know that you are my disciple. Not that you preached 10 weeks, not that you gave away 1,000 turkeys, that you have loved one. And is that, he said, by this shall all men know that you have love for one another. So if our fathers are built with love, we help men attack the pressures of anxiety and stress that are making them mentally not be able to make the right decisions. If they feel loved and do all those things, then they can pivot and go and show that love to the family that they may be struggling to lead. So it starts with all of that, man.
Yeah, I think that the biggest part for me is that after you get a fiery sermon, what's next? And for me, just me personally, and I've learned a lot in Sunday school. I love reading. So when preachers hollering, you confusing me. Because like, why are you screaming? And
you're from the mad church. You got an angry God, the comedian.
Cause I read. I do. Tony Evans. He has an app. that every morning when I'm taking my son to school, I like listening to a word. Every day at 8 o'clock, I get a text, from the Bible app. I get a word to help train me. I can't do the things that I'm doing right now without reading God's word. And no shade on my church. It's just reading's helped me more. Reading has helped me more on decision making, because I do know the Bible talks about decisions and consequences. And when I see people examples of that, that's something that really helped change me to who I am now. So when I'm tempted to do wrong, because women was my weakness before I got married. Women was my weakness. I've seen guys who cheat and mess up, and I've seen the devastation of the family. Yep. And so when people look at my phone, why do I have a picture of my 2 boys there? It's because I want to be sure that when I die, they can't say Daddy messed my mama up. I don't want my boys to ever say that. My youngest one would probably, not MJ, my youngest will say it. He got a mouth on him. My mom said he's a younger version of me. Right. But I know we can do more. I had some more questions to ask, but I got to talk about your business before we close, because I had like 3 more questions to ask about church. But I'm gonna bring you back, dude. I got to bring you back.
We from there, man.
I got to bring you back, dude. Jim, he's coming back before the end of the year,
man. Promise me.
I may have a panel, maybe 3 or 4 of us do this again. But you have a great nonprofit, Transformation Center, Transformation Life Center. I'm glad I saw on your shirt. Tell my audience a little bit about why you have this initiative, your nonprofit, and what made you decide to give back and help today's youth.
Yeah, and before you say that, and it was just felt in my heart, with talking about my dad and me. I regurgitated some of the same issues that I beat my dad down for. Wow. And I have to say that in humility, because I have a 19-year-old daughter. I have a wife. We're both PKs. We both know, being at church, my dad not being here and there, and I was going to fix it. And I found myself and had to repent to my daughter, to my wife, for the very same things that I crucified my dad for. Wow. And I've never shared this publicly. I've done it privately. I continue to do that because it's hard. I will never fake the funk. I failed my daughter in areas, church, pastoring, missing this and missing that. So I want to publicly just let men know that you have to fix it. Don't lose your family for church. God, I don't believe God called you to be a Sunday morning savior and a Sunday night demon. Yeah. I believe he's a God of balance, and I did not balance me, and I'm suffering from that now. I'm doing whatever I can do, because I'm 50 and she's 19 now. My wife's 25 years. They've been the ultimate sacrifice to let me live out this thing called holiness and what God has called us to do. But to no extent should any of us allow those things and those glories to get in the way of your family being the biggest heroes of your life. So I just want to say that I'm working. I'm to salvage all of that, and it will happen, because I'm strong enough to say I'm not going to gain all of this and lose those amazing that amazing child that God gave me. So that leads into Transformation Life Center. I mean, that was it. I've had a couple thousand people, college students. We started this being the first in my family to go to college. I started wearing suits in the 5th grade to be like my dad. They thought it was a fad. Of course, 5th grade, he'll grow out of it. 7th grade, 8th grade, high school, playing football games on Friday, balling the suit up. Like, this dude got an old nature. This dude's crazy. College, got the Fisk University, showed up with alligator skin shoes, a navy blue suit, a briefcase. They thought I was a teacher. Nobody would get around me. I had to pull my license out. They said, man, he 18. Yeah. So that old nature, that business acumen has been on me for years, but I did not get that scholarship for football and academics. So I ended up at Fisk University. The biggest blessing for me, didn't know about an HBCU, was I feel that as a black man walking into a library where every book is black and not just a section, it empowered me. I'm like, what happened? I've been robbed. John Lewis, the boys, Nicky Giovanni, never heard of them, but got the Fisk, and I would walk from Fisk to my internships in the early 90s. Greg would pick me up, living with the Johnsons. Man, the church took me and they picked me up. I'm walking 3 to 5 miles a day, looking the part, but almost failing out of school. 1.8 GPA, went through the darkest days of my life, but finally graduated with and got my dream job with IBM in 1999 after 6 years in college. 6 years looking the part.
I'm longer than you, dude.
And nobody knew, like, this dude. I'm sleeping on the dorm director's floor.
Yeah.
I'm hiding. My parents didn't know. I hid this, and it birthed in me when I got that job with IBM, making great money. I came back to Fisk, and I walked the same route I walked with tears in my eyes. I'm walking through Hermosa Street. It was hood back then. It ain't what it is now. It ain't the Gulch.
Yeah.
And I'm swinging at the air, Marcus, and I'm like, God, why? And he said, every step you took was a step towards your success. He was molding and preparing me for today to start and birth this nonprofit that I run 3.1 miles in a suit and sneakers 14 years straight.
Yeah.
Raise $100,000. Yeah, I'm the crazy black man that runs in the suit every year, but that money goes to Transformation Life Center, where we ignite purpose, inspire success, and transform the lives of African-American collegiate students and youth living in underserved communities through education, leadership, mental health, and fitness. And we take boys 2nd through 5th grade through our Black Men Run, Brown Boys Read program, where we inspire the love of reading through the love of running to help Black and brown boys improve reading proficiency, outrun child obesity, and live healthier, fuller lives to become holistically developed as men. And then they pipe into our Pathway to Success Leadership Academy, where we take 50 college students from various colleges, bring them face to face with thought leaders, mental health, fitness, black CEOs, white CEOs. They go through 14 to 17 workshops where we empower them to be the future leaders in our community, ultimately fulfilling our vision, cultivating future leaders who will positively impact their community and, Marcus, ultimately the world. As our sons grow and they have nurturing, they become the fathers we didn't have, but the fathers they all should be, and our offspring and our men get better. So that's what we're doing at TLC, man. We are excited about everything, and this is year 14 for us. And we're just excited about the thousands of students that God has given us to empower, and we're excited about being here to share it with your audience.
Well, I'll applaud you, because like I said, I watch you. Anybody's doing great work, I watch to see how can I get better. So, you know, you have 14. I'm just 11. So
you're right there.
I'm watching you. I'm watching you do the work you're doing, getting blessed with the financial success. Because at the end of the day, I tell people as we close is that we all are fighting, trying to help people.
Yes.
And if you're getting funds, why would I be jealous? You know, I tell you this: when you got the money from Phoenix, we didn't. Okay. But did you not know we're in the process now trying to get that same grant?
Oh, wow.
You know why? Is that in my BNI, I ask God, usually I always ask God, what do I need to say in my 60 seconds? And this day I said, hey, if anybody know any foundation grants, I'm a grant writer. I write them. You know, we need funds for X, Y, and Z. And not knowing that one of my BNI members, Connor.
Yes, Connor Perry. Yes. Yeah. Great friend. Sitting right there?
Sitting right there. He says,
champion. Yeah. Oh, wow.
And then he says, hey, Marcus, you ever heard of Phoenix Club of Nashville? I was like, yeah, we did a grant 2022. We just didn't go nowhere. He was like, all right, let me reach out to Chris Brody.
Wow. And
we're in the process. Wow. And Tuesday, we'll see. I put it in God's hands.
Come on. I pray. It is done in Jesus' name. Come on.
You know, to keep helping these boys in the mentorship program. Because, you know, that's what my passion is. And I pray that God blesses me to get in the areas of serving fathers in 2025. I really want to go into that area of giving fathers tools so they can protect their family. The whole goal is protect your family.
That's it.
Give them that protection that they need so they don't have to go through as much trauma. You can have a loving family. And I love, the older I get, the more I love my family. Because now, if my son being 15, preparing to, you know, get him out of high school and get him to college or a life skill, that's been a tough journey because I don't want to let him go.
That's right.
But I'm learning as a father some things I need to do to prepare to let my son go and let him learn life. I can't protect him from everything, though I want to. But I realize I cannot do that because I'm going to ultimately, me and my wife talking about that yesterday, you're going to hurt. I'm going to ruin him, and I can't ruin him.
I can't say that loud enough. You're going to ruin him.
Yeah, I'm going to ruin him because, daddy's always there, and he's not going to know how to take care of himself. So this is tough. He's going to get his first job this summer.
Yes.
He's going to get his first job this summer.
Great.
At a convenience store, and seeing him in the uniform, I'm going to break down like that's my son. He's turning into a man. So as we close, how can people support Transformation Life Center? Just look into the camera, tell people to support you. Because I believe anybody bring on here is not so much about me. I think if we all getting donations, and I believe this, that if I bless you, God going to bless me.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, when you call me about it, hey, you know anybody for the Phoenix? I give you information. I see you a big check. I was like, all right. God, you bless him. I totally forgot about it.
Yep. And then God put you in BNI, puts the same guy right next to you.
I've been in BNI.
And you like
Connor just started like a year ago.
Timing. Yep.
There we go. Man, Jim, we got to bring him back.
There you go.
We got to bring you back, man, because we
This my guy.
We could go 2 hours from
collaboration,
church, and you open my eyes to a lot of stuff and a lot of things. But tell my audience as we close out this podcast, how can they support you financially and give to your ministry?
Indeed. We are easy. We're on all platforms. You can go to transformationlifecenter.org. On that platform, you can see all the programs and services that we provide. You can set yourself up for recurring giving, $5, $10. We're both a nonprofit, right? We got to raise a bunch of money, but we got to give a bunch of money, and then we got to do it all over again. Imagine if Stronger Than My Father, Transformation Life Center, really had the funds behind us to get us in front of the 8 ball instead of behind it every 365 days. You can sponsor a kid for $50, $25, sacrifice a cup of coffee a couple times a month and give so that we can continue to provide our services free. We don't charge the boys and the young women at all because of our donors. So transformationlifecenter.org. We're on Instagram, TLC_Nash, and our 5K race, our biggest fundraiser, where you'll see me in that suit and sneakers. We're hoping for 1,000 runners. Last year we did $109,000. I mean, blew us away. $45. I give the biggest medals, and the t-shirt will be at Shelby. It's flat and fast. Bring grandma out. Put your kid in a stroller. Get a 1 mile walk around that beautiful Sevier Lake. That's going to be September the 14th. That's our biggest annual fundraiser called Steps of Success 5K. And then you can just reach out if you want to call 615-997-6841 or email me personally, dshort, SHORT, at transformationlifecenter.org. We appreciate all that you do, and never is a little, never a not a lot, because a lot of people doing a little gets a whole lot done. Thank you.
Hey, man, please support them. Please support Transformation Life Center. We're going to do this before the end of the year. I give you my word. I'm going to probably bring 1 or 2 others on, and we go deep into church, fatherhood, and family. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule just to come do this with me, man. This is mean a lot to me. The best.
Come on,
thank you, man.
I got you, my guy, man.
All right, man. Thank
Appreciate
you, man.
you, Marcus. Thank you, buddy.
Hey, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast, your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood. Hey, if you like what you hear, I ask you to please like and subscribe to our Stronger Than My Father Facebook page and all of our social media platforms. My goal is to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year. So help me make that possible. And if you like what you hear, please leave a donation of any amount of $25 or more to help keep this podcast on the air. I can't do this for free. So please help us at strongandmyfather.org/donate. Your donation help us continue to keep this podcast live on the air. God bless you. Stay safe. And I'll see you again on another episode of Strong in My Father podcast.